Hello and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute privilege to be joined by the fabulous Laura Ahern. Laura, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, me too. I'm so excited, and we got carried away before we even started. So before we get carried away again, as we've proved we can do, let me share a little bit more about you with the people listening and watching. So Laura is a medium, an intuitive and clairvoyant, known as the energy linguist. She helps individuals decode the hidden messages in their life experiences and unlock their highest potential. After a personal tragedy that awakened her spiritual gifts, Laura has dedicated her life to guiding others in integrating their unique abilities into practical, everyday wisdom. She's the founder of Ascension Healing and the creator of the True Method. Laura is the author of The True Calling, a book designed to help people transform confusion into clarity and embrace their unique calling with confidence and purpose. I mean, wow, Laura. I mean, there's so much in there that I would just like to dig into. But to get us started, could you share with us your journey so far?
Oh my goodness. So a brief overview, I guess, because it's so funny. Time is a funny thing. It's definitely at times it feels like forever, and other times it feels really fast, right? And this journey for me started, it was just over a decade ago now, when I was actually married at 28 years old to my best friend, Josh. We had been together about 5 years by the time we were married. And 4.5 months after being married, he had a seizure out of the blue. And I called 911. We got him to the hospital, and they diagnosed him with a terminal brain tumor and gave him 9 months to live.
Oh my goodness.
So at 29 years old, he did live for 14 months. It was actually miraculous, the things we experienced. But he lived for 14 months, and I was widowed at the age of 29. And so this journey, it's so beautiful when I hear you talk about just the intro of the things that I am, because these are not ever things I expected to be. My spiritual gifts, which are innate, weren't really awakened yet. Unfortunately for us as human beings, it really is the pain of the things that challenge us, that do awaken our innate gifts, our uniqueness. And so the things that I am doing today, I could have never imagined at that point in time. In fact, after his passing, I couldn't imagine wanting to live at all, quite frankly, a lot of the time. And so my journey was not only quite unexpected, but quite supported by a lot of spiritual angels and a lot of magic, I would say, that led me into really where I am today. Taking a huge adventure. I feel like it's many lifetimes in a lifetime over the last decade, but it has led me to literally being able to work with people all over the globe. I have clients across the globe who I've been able to help just heal a lot of different traumas that they've experienced in their life, the things that were limiting them, and set themselves free to discover who they truly are, what they're on this planet for, and how to confidently embrace that so that they can live really the journey they were called to live.
Oh, wow. I love that. I'm so sorry to hear.
Thank you.
I can't begin to imagine what that must have been through. And I think you're right. Sometimes, I was talking to somebody this morning, and they said when it came to parenting, they said they've realized that the days are long, but the years are short.
Oh,
but I think that's true of life, isn't it? It's like, when we're in it feels like it's never ending. And yet in the blink of an eye, we don't get that back. We don't get to work on that. So I think for me there, it was always that great reminder of making sure that we're being intentional in our present. But I think, and we were chatting about this before, I think sometimes the platform you're on has to be so uncomfortable that you have no choice but to move and go and do that journey inward, I think.
Really, truly, Kim, I love that you say that, because obviously I didn't elaborate it, but when you use that word and you explain that perspective you hold before we got started today, it really, really does speak to me, because the truth of our human nature is that we are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And the unknown, going into something new, is terrifying. We don't know that we will survive. It doesn't feel safe. And so we project a lot of pain in getting out of our comfort zone and getting uncomfortable. And so what's really interesting for me is that my tragedy was so heavy on so many levels, because I didn't just lose my best friend and my spouse. I lost my entire life. I lost everything I thought, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd set up, everything I thought was in front of me just kind of suddenly dissipated and disappeared. And what I was more scared of was staying in that grief and sinking to a place where I couldn't recover. That
Right.
known had to become less scary than my current reality. And that, unfortunately, for our human nature, is just part of it. Usually that's what it takes to motivate us to great change. Now, my hope for all people is that they don't have to go through that level of devastation I went through to be awakened. My awakening was quite quick, but many people live prolonged chronic suffering that they're constantly just getting more and more uncomfortable until they're willing to heed that message and recognize that it's that discomfort, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, right? Our beliefs, the things we think about ourselves, all of that internal stuff that becomes so heavy, that is actually meant to be our road sign, right? To move in a different direction. And so sometimes it does require the current situation we're in to become more uncomfortable than what we perceive the next unknown step to be.
That's so true. It so resonates. I often think as well, if we don't learn the lesson, life will repeat the lesson for us.
It does. Because we actually have a soul's contract. We came here because our soul, this is what's really beautiful, Kim. Our soul is not wired the same way as the human essence. So keep in mind that spiritual essence of us and our physical being, human being, are of the same energetic field. They're not separate. We think they're very separate because we operate so much in the intellect, but they're not separate. But there is something that's very uniquely different about them, which is when we're in this physical experience of our human nature, we do avoid pain and seek pleasure. However, our spirit didn't come here to avoid pain. It actually came here to experience the expansiveness of what it means to be a human being. And so it wants to see it all. It wants to learn there's something really specific that it's seeking. And unfortunately, it's not to avoid pain. And so you're right. When we don't see that road sign and we continue on that road, there's a bigger sign that tries to catch our attention again, right? And if we continue to go down it, in fact, I have a little story in my book, The True Calling, that is this metaphor of like a journey through the woods. And like the signs just keep getting bigger. And quite often we're just upset about the sign or the bump in the road instead of going, oh, wait, I forgot I should read the sign I just smacked into, right? So that really, I totally agree with you on that.
Oh, I love that, because there have been definitely moments in my life where I'm like, stop banging your head against the wall, Kim. It hurts. It just hurts. Learn the lesson. Like, go back. And I think, if life's taught me anything, it's that everything in it is a lesson, a blessing, or both. So in those moments where I don't feel blessed, I look for the lesson, because that's where the blessing will be. And I think for me, life often only makes sense in the rearview mirror. You look back and go, right. Okay, I see now why I had to experience that, or I see now why this had to happen, because I was meant to get something for it that is part of why I'm here. It's part of my journey. But I spent a lot of years, and I wonder if this resonates for some of the people that you help. I spent a lot of years looking externally for the answer. Thinking if I read more books, if I went on more courses, if I worked harder, if I just did more stuff, then actually it would all become much clearer. And yet my reality was, until I went on the journey inward to look at all of the beliefs, all of the things that I had held true about myself, and brought them out to look at again and go, are they really true? And do they serve me? And where did it even come from? That actually I started to gain real clarity.
Absolutely. Everything you said, I resonate with, I agree with, and I've seen to be true in working with people around the world. It's really interesting because the narrative of our journey are also unique. But when you look at us from an energetic perspective, I'm fortunate because my spiritual gifts allow me to actually see somebody's energetic field and kind of soul grid to see what's in the way. Those patterns are actually quite similar. We all are kind of struggling with these same kind of patterns because we are in this collective agreement of sorts around our beliefs. But you said it so beautifully about questioning those. The majority of your beliefs are not yours. They didn't come from you, right? Because they came from those who we learned by. We were learning before we even realized we were. So as it works with the way that our brains develop when we're young, between the age of like 0 to 2, we're just very much like a sponge when we are. And in fact, it goes all the way to the age of 6 where we are in the process of developing this independent self of I. But prior to that, what's happening is we're not looking to our external world, whether it's our society or our parents, and going, do I agree with that? Because there is no I. We don't see ourselves as separate. And so we're just simply concluding in our unconscious mind that this is the way the world works. And then it's the foundations we keep working for. So until we do exactly what you just described that you've done, which is look within ourselves to question those things and say, I'm obviously acting as if I believe this, but do I? Is this true? And if you think it's true and it isn't empowering you, could you decide otherwise? Could you choose to? And in fact, a lot of the practices within my book are practices that help us to see our experiences through a lens of empowerment, to see what you've actually gained, the spiritual muscles that you've developed through going through what you've gone through. Because when you discover that it all does truly serve you, that mistakes are not optional, right? They're required, and they are the thing that helps us to re-navigate our path, right? To pivot and go in a different direction when we allow them to serve us. So it really is looking at yourself the way you did, the way that is really truly required for us to break free of the limits we're living in our lives, is the answer to us living as our authentic self, living freely, with a lot of love for all pieces of us.
I love that. It's that, I always say it's not the mistake that defines us. It's what we do with it. It's like what we take from it and how we evolve that. And I love that whole part at the end about the love for all parts of ourselves. I mean, certainly on my journey, I often admit this. I didn't love myself at all, any part of me, at all. So it took a long time to first like myself, and then go, actually, I can love myself, flaws and all. That doesn't mean to say I don't need to work on them. That doesn't mean to say I don't need to look at choices to say, could I improve those? Because if I'm aware of them and then not making me feel empowered, I should probably see if there's an alternative choice that I could have, rather than just go, that's just who I am. That's where I get to. But it is that learning that actually you also have to value yourself and your space in the world.
Yeah. I love what you just said, because I sense it's going to be very comforting to a lot of your listeners around this. Like I had to learn to even like myself before I could love myself, because I think that we all are projecting and wearing these masks so frequently of showing up the way that we think the world wants us to, so that we can feel like we're enough. That we often don't even want to, we feel alone in the dissatisfaction that lies under the surface. And the truth of the matter is we are not all that alone. My journey was very, very interesting, especially through the rearview mirror. I love that you mentioned that, because that rearview mirror is everything. Because when we learn how to kind of perceive life differently, we may run into something else in our future that we're quite uncertain how to handle the challenge, but we know that we can have that faith and that trust because we've gone through something before. So we start to kind of embody some of those characteristics or those tactics that we've used before in order to be successful. But my journey was quite interesting, because when Josh passed away and I went on this journey of really seeking just to find joy, to believe that there was a purpose behind everything we had gone through, and to continue just to hold that faith. I ran into in fact, I shared this story in my book, a very terrifying moment for myself where I had moved from Florida to California, and I was going through this yoga teacher training through Cloud9 Yoga. It was an incredible, Erica Faith Kalig, she's an incredible, incredible yoga guide, because she really does a lot of the foundations of that spiritual journey, not just the physical practice. And so we were going very deep without really knowing, right? It's kind of like that hook, right? That you get into the physical practice thinking it's about the physical, and then all of the emotional and the spiritual stuff starts to shift. And I remember laying at the end of class in Shavasana, just totally eyes closed, meditating. And suddenly all of these fears, regrets, memories of things that I really regret is the biggest word I guess I can use for that. Regretted that the things you can't undo, the life that you live and the things that cause pain that you wish you didn't have to go through, or that you wish you hadn't done, started to rise. And because I was alone, my husband was gone, there was no one there to tell me that you're enough, you're forgiven, it's okay, I love you. And it was I could feel the terror rising within me, because it was the moment of reality for me that I knew if I could not learn to love myself with those things, not in spite of them, but as a whole, that I wasn't going to survive, because I was actually afraid I couldn't live with myself because of the things that I regretted. And we all have those things within us in some way, our own unique experiences of wishing we didn't have to carry the pain, or that we hadn't caused pain. And it was that moment in time where I realized I am going to have to find a way to look at my life through a lens of the way that, recognizing that if it did cause me pain, it's because I'm not aligned with it. Right? Because if I was that person, it wouldn't have caused me that kind of pain. So I'm not my experience. And that's one of the real key principles I talk about in my book, is that we are not our experiences. So often we link our identity with the things that are creating our pain, when it's just something we experienced. And we were meant to experience it temporarily. It is our own identifying with it that creates prolonged pain that turns into suffering, because we're holding it as if it's a piece of us that we can't set aside. And so I had to learn through my own journey to love myself with all of those pieces and recognize how they served me. And now I'm able to help others to do that. And so when we go on that journey, it is terrifying. But the reality is that nothing outside of ourselves, no external goal, no external person is ever going to fill that void. We have to fill ourselves up from the inside first, and then allow that to overflow into the rest of our lives.
Oh, wow. I love that. And it so resonates. For me, one of my big eye-opening moments was having become a mum and then facing a potentially life-threatening illness. I suddenly panicked that I might not be here to help my little girl grow and to find her space in the world, whatever that space is destined to be. And it was in that moment that it suddenly hit me, as I went to write her a letter to pass on whatever I wanted to. It hit me that actually, if I survived, I needed to do the work to be able to like myself and then love myself, to show her the path to be able to love herself. All bits included, all of those elements that go, that we're not perfect, we're perfectly imperfect, and that's okay. And we'll make mistakes, but we can learn from them. And one of the big things I do with my little girl is I'm very careful that she doesn't use labels. So I say that might have been a silly choice, or that choice is going to cost you something, but you're not your choice. You are a beautiful, happy little human being who has the opportunity to make good choices and to make poor choices, but they're just choices, and we can make different ones the minute we realize they're not serving us. And I'll be honest, occasionally, Laura, it comes back to haunt me. Like the other day when the dog got very excited and nearly knocked me down the stairs, and I went, "Oh, you silly animal." And she looked at me, she had hands on hips, and she went, "Mummy, he is not a silly animal. He made a silly choice." I was like, yes, he did. And thank you for the reminder.
And it is. It's so funny. They keep us in line.
But I think that's because they've got that natural curiosity. They look at the world with wonder, and they look at everything as an opportunity to learn. And then we teach them things like curiosity killed the cat. Like, no, it didn't. Stay curious. Be curious. Question more. Be more interested in, is there an alternative? Why am I so wedded to being right? Why am I so convinced if I'm right, you're wrong?
Yeah.
It could both be right, because we could both be looking at it from a different perspective. But we have to open our hearts to hear that perspective.
Absolutely. And you're right. We all do actually look through a different perspective. What I love is our human brains are just so, I mean, they're so brilliant. I think it's 86 billion neurons in our brains, and each neuron can make up to 10,000 connections with different neurons. Now, do that math, right? It's exponential, which means that our brains are connecting so uniquely. They're putting pieces of information together differently than anybody else on the planet, right? That's why that's like the physical proof that you're the only you, right? Spiritually, it's even bigger. We know this, but I share this because that is the filter through which we see the world. Our emotions are kind of that gateway into our unconscious, and everybody's going to feel different. We could all be in the same room and be experiencing the same thing and being taught the same foundational information. But the way that our mind perceives it is so different. And so curiosity, it's so important. In fact, I teach a lot of my clients around this. I did have one beautiful client. She's so funny because every time I told her to be curious, that really what she called triggered her. Like, she did not like the word curious. Like, why are you always telling us to be curious? I was like, well, you should get curious about that. Why does that trigger you? I was kind of messing with her, right? And she laughed. But it's like, that is the key, the ability to look within ourselves. And quite frankly, a lot of the times when we are triggered by something like that is because we're afraid to analyze it, because we're afraid of what we might find within ourselves. And I can tell you the analogy that I love, that I use, excuse me, for clients is if you're like me, this has happened a time or two in my life when I was young, even as an adult, when you go into your bedroom and the lights are off and you're afraid something's under the bed and you like move really quick and you jump on the bed, right? And it's like, if that light was on, you would not be running like that and jumping on the bed, would you? Like, you wouldn't even be afraid or come to mind that something could be there. But we've done that. We do that. And the message there is everything's scarier in the dark. But if you flip on that light, if you shine light with your curiosity on something that's happening within you or within your experience, and then ask yourself about it, really engage with that childlike curiosity like you're talking about, it's not as scary. It's just when we leave it in the dark, it builds upon itself to feel like something that's unconquerable. But curiosity is the key. It's the key to really just discovering how life can be more peaceful, how we can be more at home within ourselves.
Oh, I love that, because wherever we go, don't we? We can't leave
Wherever you go, there you are. You can't outrun yourself. That's the thing. A lot of people are trying.
Yeah, and that for me was a big eye opener, which was, if I don't like myself, I need to change myself, because I can't get away from myself. I can't leave myself behind for a bit and just go and have a breather, because that just doesn't happen. So you have kind of had to go and do the piece of work to say, well, hold on, if the only person guaranteed to be with me for every day of my life is me, the only person guaranteed to be there at my birth and my death is me. So I need to work on making that somebody I want to be on this journey with. And therefore, look at those bits, and how many times have we put stuff off and gone, oh, it's going to be awful, it's going to be really dreadful. We built it up into something absolutely horrendous, and then we get there and go, that wasn't so bad. But I've wasted 8 days terrified about the potential and psychoanalyzing every potential outcome that could have happened, rather than just take the leap and find out what it is, because what we're fearful of hasn't actually happened. We've just imagined it. To your point, there isn't anything under the bed. It's just the light's not on. And we can't fully see everything. But that's like our future. We can't fully see everything. Exactly. But I think and often we wait, don't we? Because if we can't see everything, we won't take that first step. And yet I've kind of learned through life that sometimes, as long as you can see the next right thing to do, as long as you keep taking the next right thing, all of a sudden you get given the next step and the next step and the next step. And you look back and go, I would never have thought I could have got here.
That's very much my journey. That's why I said this 10 years is so funny, because it's so many lifetimes and I didn't really know where I was headed. Yeah. And part of that is that in fact, that's how my intuitive skills became stronger and stronger. And even to this day do, because I would get that intuitive hit. I would get this inspiration, and the only way that next piece of information came, or even to this day comes when I'm working with clients, is I have to be willing to take that first step. I have to be willing to say the thing. I have to be willing to do the thing. And then suddenly that next piece of the puzzle is there. And so it is, the thing that makes there's nothing under the bed, but it seems scary, is that we can't predict it. We can't see it. It feels unknown. It is unknown. When things are dark, or our future, we can't see that whole path yet. And yet what I discovered, which can be very empowering for us to realize, is that it really doesn't ever have to be about trusting that you've made the right step. Because again, if you're like me, it could be the analysis paralysis, right? Where you're just thinking about it until you want to make sure it's the perfect choice, because you don't want it to be the wrong one. And the only wrong choice is to not grow, not to evolve, not to move. And so for me, it was always this, I learned, you don't have to trust that you're making the perfect decision. You don't even have to trust that it's the right one. You just have to trust yourself that you are resilient enough, you're smart enough, you're resourceful enough that you know how to pivot, right? You can trust yourself to be resourceful, figure it out. And if it's not what you feel is in the best interest of you or those you love or in your highest potential, then you pivot. And so it's not about trusting the rest of the world. It really does keep coming back, just like we're talking about, to being whole within ourselves, loving ourselves, trusting ourselves. But the kicker is, you do not learn to trust yourself until you trust yourself. You actually have to do it first, because what's the saying, that we're actually not capable of the thing we're seeking yet? Because if we were capable of it, it would already be a part of our normalized day, our normalized way of living. And so the thing that we're moving towards and we're seeking, we are not yet capable of. But if we can engage with that courage to attempt it, to trust ourselves, to go for it, we become capable of it. We develop that skill set. And that's when the confidence to live in this whole new level then presents itself, because it does become our new normalized way of being, because we've gone within and we've done that inner work to trust ourselves and keep pushing into the uncomfortable.
Oh, I love that. I had a guest on a while ago, and they talked about changing it from it being a decision, which felt for them like something massive, and therefore it would, there's no coming back from it if you get it wrong. We need to sit here, and like you said, with analysis paralysis and risk assess everything, to actually saying, it's just my next whatever. And immediately after I've done that, it's my next of like whatever that's going to be. Because if the decision I make doesn't end up feeling right once I've made it, I get to make the next one.
Yeah.
So just changing some of that terminology. And I think you always reminded me, growing up, we had the whole, you made your bed, you've got to lie in it. And I think that kind of drives some of that fear that you're going to make the wrong decision. But for me, it always made me smile. It's like, well, it's your own bed, get out and make it again. If it's not laying it being uncomfortable, get out and look at actually how else can you deal with it. You've got a new set of circumstances, but they don't have to define you, as long as we keep looking for ways to help them better serve.
Yeah. And what you've just done, though, you've proven to us again what that curiosity is. We say a lot of things. In fact, the more I walked my path and I really started to align with these higher vibrational ways of existing, which was filled with gratitude and peace and trust and all of these things, I noticed I started becoming acutely aware of the way that I was interacting with the rest of the world. And in depending on the setting, especially with strangers, if somebody would say something of complaint to me or say, I would rebuttal with these lines. And then I would hear in my mind go, well, that's not true. Right? Like we say these things like you made your bed, now lie in it. There's all of these beliefs. Again, they were never ours to begin with. And so
Yeah.
we do have the power to challenge them and ask ourselves and re-choose our belief. And the reason that I love that so much when you're talking about this ability to change is that once we discover we can look at things differently than maybe the general society is looking at them, that's when we really start to open our potential to create our life anew. And we have to realize that challenging our beliefs is the thing that can set us free, especially because like when you look at even the way that our school systems are, at least in the United States here, it's like, okay, pick what you want to do for the rest of your life. You're still an adolescent. You certainly don't know yourself as much as you will come to know yourself. But here's a list and all of these boxes, and like pick one of these boxes. Just check that off. You're going to do that forever. Right. And so that's where you can see that you made your bed, now lie in it, pick what you're going to do for the rest of your life. All of these things feel like, oh my God, there's no way back.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, there isn't a way back for a lot of people because they continue just to walk in that societal pattern. There are people that when you look at the list of the way that they're living, everything externalized seems like they should feel fulfilled and they should be happy. And they're not. Because they've now been chasing somebody else's dream or walking a path that they were taught they had to walk it this way to be safe, to be secure, to be valued, right? Again, all external. And so that's really what I do help people with, is to discover what that unique vibrational blueprint is within them that is calling them to do something that's actually different. And will not only help them to feel fulfilled, but to sustain a life that they love living. And so it's interesting. It does take challenging those beliefs and recognizing that quite often a lot of the things we say or even hear in our head are not all that true. It's up to us on whether or not we're going to choose to identify with them and believe that those limitations exist for us.
I love that. It's so true. I could literally chat to you all day, and we've overrun.
I know we have. I love it. It's so wonderful to be with you.
But before you go, can I ask you? I mean, you've already shared so much great insight and so much actionable things that we can go and look at. But if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
That piece of advice would be that I deserve to be loved first, that I deserve to care for me first, that I don't need to give away all I have for others to be loved. And I think that's a really important message, especially for people who are drawn to the type of work I do, because we tend to be empathic by nature. We're here on this planet because we care for others. We want to uplift them. We want to serve. We want to help alleviate their suffering. And being empathic in nature means our soul knows that we're here to serve. But then society's taught us that it's selfish to keep things for ourselves, or it's selfish to put ourselves first. And so it becomes this patterned way of burnout and self-sacrifice, where then we're actually no good to the people we desire to serve and care for. And so that is what it is for me, is to know that loving me first is actually the key. Filling me up is the key to loving others and serving others.
Wow, I love that. Amazing, because it's so true. It took a long time for me to realize that it was okay and not selfish, but it is the breakthrough, because we can't fill from an empty cup, can we? If we're empty, we can't support others. So Laura, how do people get in touch with you, and who do you help?
Yeah. So my website is my name. It's lauraahern.com. You can find me there. And the type of people I help, it's really funny because I have served people who are in their teens all the way through their 70s, both men and women. So when you look at it through that lens, it's like, it feels like everybody, but it's really a particular type of person who feels lost in their life, that no matter how much external success they have had, they still feel like something's missing. They feel like there's something bigger calling them, that there's something that matters most to them, and they don't quite know what it is or how to find it. And so that is my ideal person to work with, a person that is to the point where they've kind of exhausted all of the traditional methods of trying to find fulfillment in their life, and they are willing and ready to look at these kind of non-traditional ways of integrating ourselves, so that we can come into our wholeness and live the lives we really not only desire to live, but deserve to be living.
Amazing. Laura, I make sure that all of the details of how people can get in touch with you are in the show notes below. So for anybody listening and watching, if you didn't catch that, just check the show notes out and all of that will be there. Laura, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much. You went in the blink of an eye.
It really did. And it's been a delight for me too. I'm so deeply appreciative of your time and just connecting with me today.
Bless you, and back at you. And for everybody listening and watching, I hope you found it as inspiring, insightful, and intriguing, and it has sparked some curiosity. And until next time, take care.